Well, viewers, those are the headlines in our top focus. What's transpiring in Europe? Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has stated that Russia has launched a massive overnight attack on Ukraine, firing more than 50 missiles and nearly 500 drones. At least 5 people have been killed, including 4 in Lviv, near the Polish border, where an industrial park caught fire and parts of the city also lost power. Now, authorities have urged residents to stay indoors as they battled the fires. Meanwhile, in Zaporizhia, 1 person has lost their lives and 9 others have been wounded, with more than 73,000 homes now left without power. Other regions, including Ivano-Frankivsk, Vinnytsia, Chernihiv, Kherson, Kharkiv and Odessa, have also suffered damage to civilian infrastructure. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Yulia Svirdenko has called the attacks deliberate and the fact that it is an act of terror against civilians. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelenskyy has warned that the strikes targeted homes, schools and energy facilities as Ukraine is facing an escalating energy crisis, especially now with winter approaching. With us on the broadcast is Mohammad Osman, International Relations Specialist, joining us from Cairo. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We've been seeing an increased barrage of attacks on either side of the battle lines that have been drawn. Energy infrastructure in particular has been targeted as well. If this continues, especially with winter now setting in, what are the consequences for the people of Russia and Ukraine?
Thank you for having me, Pia. Of course, the Ukrainian war now is entering its 4th year. Next February, it'll be exactly 4 years since this war began. One of the most vicious conflicts we have seen in the 21st century, and maybe one of the worst since the Second World War in terms of its geopolitical implications. And of course, throughout this war, every year, in the autumn period or the fall period, right before winter, Russia usually escalates its attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure in order to, in an attempt to paralyze the Ukrainian economy and also to hamper basic services such as heating and whatnot, so that Ukraine would be in crisis and would be unable to continue the fight. However, this time, of course, the Russian attacks are much stronger on a much wider scale. They are targeting a wide variety of targets, including natural gas infrastructure, which is a first. And of course, this comes this time also in retaliation to Ukrainian attacks. Ukrainian drone attacks have targeted the Russian interior and focused on oil refineries and institutions and establishments that produce gasoline and fuel, which is instrumental, of course, not only to civilian life, but also to the supply lines of the Russian military inside Ukraine. So as you can see that now that this is a war of attempting to, a war of attrition, basically, where both countries are trying to bleed each other out, trying to drain each other's resources as much as they can. However, of course, it's a simple equation of math. Ukraine cannot compete with Russia in a war of attrition. Russia has much more resources. It has a vast land space. It has a large population, almost 250 million, and it also has a huge industrial military base, one of the largest in the world, and it also possesses the 2nd strongest army in the world. So therefore, this equation does not favor Ukraine, despite all the Western support and all of the European talk about the unlimited support that they might lend Ukraine. But of course, the Europeans rarely put their money where their mouth is, because they basically do not possess the military resources either that would satisfy Ukraine and put it on par with Russia. And the United States is now very reluctant to offer the same measures or the same support, the same volumes of military support to the Ukrainians. And even if they do, they did that before and it ultimately failed. The solution to this war, Pia, is on the negotiating table through a settlement that is reflective of the balance of power on the ground and nothing else.
Indeed, sir, I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking some crucial developments, this time from the Middle East. Now, according to reports, Germany's foreign minister is heading to the Gulf region as diplomatic talks gather pace over President Trump's Gaza plan. Johann Vadful will begin his visit in Qatar, where he is expected to meet the Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani to discuss the situation in Gaza. He will then travel to Kuwait for a meeting between European Union and the Gulf Cooperation Council foreign ministers. Kuwait currently holds the GCC chair, making this a key diplomatic stop. Now, the talks come amid renewed hopes that Trump's peace proposal could bring an end to the conflict in the region. With us on the broadcast still is Mr. Mohammed Osman. Now, it's interesting that after Donald Trump's ultimatum, Hamas has expressed willingness to release all Israeli hostages. In fact, negotiations to discuss the details and to iron out the specifics are going to be taking place in Cairo. I wanted to understand from you what's happening on the ground in Cairo and how do you personally view this breakthrough that has taken place?
I think, of course, now we do know that President Trump did offer a plan to move forward with a settlement of the Gaza conflict. And as I said before, it's far from perfect and it's not good. However, at the same time, it is a workable solution. And it seems that Hamas has responded positively to the proposal. They accepted most of it. Basically, and even they made reservations in a very subtle way on certain provisions in the agreement that can be discussed at a later stage. So President Trump reciprocated and pushed the process forward. He called upon the Israelis to halt the bombardment of Gaza, which they haven't. They scaled it back, but they did not stop. Yesterday, 70 people died in Israeli airstrikes, and today also. This morning, Israeli airstrikes happened, causing multiple casualties among civilians. However, at the same time, the process is moving forward. Now, there is a meeting that is going to take place here in Egypt between to hold indirect negotiations, of course, between Hamas and the Israelis in order to work out the details of the prisoner exchange. Hamas is supposed to release all of the hostages, dead and alive, 20 living hostages and 28 dead hostages. And on the other hand, Israel is supposed to release about 1,000 plus prisoners from Palestinian prisoners in its prisons, many of them who are illegally incarcerated by Israel. So this is to work out the logistical details and technical details of the implementation of the hostage exchange part of the deal. However, the actual challenges lay ahead there. The problem is we do not really know whether Hamas has agreed to disarm. We do not know whether Israel has agreed to fully withdraw from the Gaza Strip. Both countries, whether the Palestinian factions or Israel so far, are not being flexible enough in order to reach a durable, sustainable agreement, and especially the Israeli side. Israel has to commit to an unconditional surrender from Gaza that is in accordance with an established timetable, and the Americans should impose pressure on the Israelis in order to attain that. And on the other hand, Hamas has to reckon that it has no future, it has no place in Gaza's future, that Hamas's rash actions have led or is partially responsible to the carnage we are witnessing now in Gaza. So it is time for them to take a step back and to turn over the authority to the legitimate Palestinian Authority, or whatever Palestinian body will assume the leadership or the administration of Gaza, in agreement with the United States. Of course, I think very strong concessions have to be made by both sides in order for this agreement to move forward, and this will never be achieved without the U.S. applying enough pressure on Israel.
Absolutely. And in fact, I want to take a point forward as far as the EU GCC meeting in Kuwait is on the cards right now. It's slated to take place very, very shortly. What are your expectations regarding this particular meeting, especially with regards to achieving peace in the Middle East, in the long term?
It will be a significant proponent of pushing the peace agenda forward. The EU, most of the EU countries now have a very progressive stance on the Palestinian issue. Many countries in Europe, Germany is not one of them, unfortunately, but many countries in the European Union, including France, and Portugal and Spain and others, have recognized Palestine, and they wish for this peace settlement that Trump is pushing to end the war to move forward. And they also seek to resume the stagnant peace process that has been paralyzed for over 10 years now, to move it forward in order to get the two-state solution back on track. However, of course, I'm not that optimistic, to be very honest with you. The GCC and the Europeans do not have that much influence anymore within this calculus, because Israel pays no attention to no one and only listens to the United States. If the United States is interested in a durable peace settlement, a definitive peace settlement that is just, that is based on international law, it will happen. If they are not, and they are not, unfortunately, so far, and they only wish to freeze the conflict in Gaza for a few weeks, maybe, or a few months, then, and this is what the more plausible scenario, then of course, this means that actual peace and real peace will never be attained.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time and sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World. With that,